Hi everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel German with Ajla. Of course, your favorite place for learning German, where I provide you with practical German lessons with a special focus on clear and super easy grammar explanations. I am so happy that you clicked on this video because today we want to cover a topic that is really hard and that is really challenging for anyone on A1, but even on higher levels. Today, we want to speak about the German cases with a special focus on accusative. In German, we actually have 4 cases. We call them Nominativ, Akkusativ, Dativ, and Genitiv. As you are starting to learn German, all the words at the beginning are mainly introduced in nominative. But as you are progressing with your German course, you are slowly getting introduced to another case, which is accusative in German, accusative, and this is the point where confusion arises and a lot of questions start popping up. What even are those cases? How do they actually work?
What the hell?
How to know in which case a word is, how to use the cases yourself, and so on. Right now, I have almost a decade of teaching experience when it comes to teaching German, and that's how I know that the moment that a student gets confronted with accusative is really challenging and really discouraging. And that's why I wanted to make this video for you, because to be really honest, I feel like this topic isn't even that hard. You just need a really good, clear and concise explanation on this to be able to understand it truly. But before we start with today's lesson, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on amazing content in the future. I hope you are ready because the lesson is starting now. First of all, I would like to explain to you what a case actually is, because if English is your native language, then you might be confused, because in English we actually do not have a case system, so this is completely unfamiliar. Luckily, in other languages we do also see a case system, so you might be familiar with this concept from school. Anyways, what is a case? Imagine it like this. A case is giving us additional important information about a word, about a noun or pronoun. So it is telling us if a, for example, noun is doing something in the sentence, or if this noun is just receiving the activity in the sentence. A case is showing us the role that a noun or pronoun plays in a sentence. And I know this may sound a little bit confusing at the beginning, but as we go through the examples, you will be able to understand this concept better. The first step when trying to master the cases is to learn the questions for the cases. Each German case has questions that are connected to this case. Why do we have these questions? Because they are helping us to identify the case in a sentence. So in order to be able to find out in which case a word will be, you have to know the questions. Let's look at them together. Starting off with nominative, here we are using the questions wer oder was, in German who or what. Meaning, if a word, for example a noun in your sentence, can answer the question wer oder was, who or what, then this word will be in Nominativ. Be careful, wer oder was macht etwas, meaning who or what is doing something. So you can see nominative is actually telling us something about the subject, about the element in the sentence that is doing something, that is initiating the activity. Therefore, it is answering the questions wer oder was, who or what. Moving on to accusative, which is the case that we are focusing on today. Accusative is answering the questions wen oder was und wohin. So in English, whom or what and where to. Let me repeat this one more time. It is really important to remember these questions. Wen oder was und wohin. Whom, what, and where to. And just by looking at these questions, you can see that nouns in accusative will play a different role than the ones that are in nominative. Why? We are using accusative in two situations. The first situation is when you are dealing with a direct object. A direct object is always answering the question whom or what. So please be careful. It's not who or what that we had in nominative. It is not about who is doing the activity. It is about to whom or to what the activity is happening. And this is always the object in a sentence. An object is not playing an active role, it has a passive role, and it is somehow just the receiver of the activity. The activity is transferred to the object. It is happening to the object, but the object is not doing the activity itself. The other situation in which accusative shows up is when we are speaking about a location that we are moving towards, places that are answering the question wohin, meaning where to. Please be careful. So it's not a place that we are staying at. It's not a place that we are at, but a place that we are moving towards. Places like this will always show up in accusative. And we will, of course, look at some examples later on, but I want to give you one example right now just to demonstrate the difference between nominative and accusative. Let's say, der Mann trinkt einen Kaffee. The man is drinking a coffee. Der Mann trinkt einen Kaffee. Let's look at the elements of the sentence, starting off with der Mann, the man. Der Mann is answering the questions wer oder was, who or what is doing the activity, who is drinking the coffee. Therefore, der Mann, the man, is the subject of the sentence, and of course, the subject is always in nominative. But then we have einen Kaffee, a coffee. He is drinking a coffee. Einen Kaffee here is answering the question wen oder was, whom or what is he drinking, meaning this is the object, the direct object of the sentence. The coffee is not doing anything, okay? So the activity is just getting transferred to the coffee. So the act of drinking is happening to the coffee, which is making this a object in accusative. In German we say accusativ Objekt. And this is also a good trick how you can remember the difference between nominative and accusative. Nominative is always showing us the subject who is doing or initiating the activity, and accusative is showing us the object who is it happening to. But it can also show us a place that we are moving towards. I also want to show you the other two cases that are still left, even though we will not go into detail, but just quickly to mention them. There is also dative, answering the questions wem oder wo, so to whom and where. Wem und wo, to whom and where. And the last one is genitive, answering the question wessen, whose. Wessen, whose. In another video, we will talk about the difference between accusative and dative because they are also pretty similar. But for now, let's just focus on accusative. So just do me a favor right now, just do not think about dative. I usually always recommend building a really good understanding of accusative before moving on to dative and being able to spot the differences between accusative and dative. So we will do that, of course, but in another video. After we have learned which questions are used for which cases, the next step is to learn the changes that are happening. The most important thing that you have to know here is that the word itself will not change. The thing that will change is the article that is used with a word. If you are using the masculine noun, der Mann, the word Mann itself will not change in different cases. What will change is the article, for example, from der to den Mann. And in this situation, der Mann is the form in nominative and den Mann is the form in accusative. Nominativ der Mann, accusative den Mann. This is just a quick demonstration to show you that words are actually not changing, only the articles that are used before the words are changing. Let's look at this in more detail using the chart that we can see on our screens. When it comes to the changes that are happening between nominative and accusative, luckily they are pretty minimal, meaning there are not a lot of changes happening here. Looking at the definite articles, in nominative for masculine words, we use der, like der Mann. For feminine words in nominative, we use die, like die Frau. For neutral words in nominative, we use the definite article das, das Kind, and for plural in nominative, we also use die. Maskulin der, feminin die, neutron das, and plural die. Looking at the changes that are happening in accusative, we can basically see that there is only one change, and this change is happening in the masculine category only to masculine nouns. In accusative, masculine nouns are always used with the article den. if it's the definite article. Der is turning into den, as we have seen before. Der Mann is turning into den Mann, while for the other genders and for plural, there are no visible changes. Feminine nouns will stay the same and will be again used with the article die. Neutral nouns will again have the article das, and the plural nouns will again be used with the article die. So this is really easy. Just remember that the change is only happening to the masculine nouns. If it's the definite article, from der, it will change to den. It is the same when using an indefinite article. The indefinite articles in nominative are for masculine nouns ein, for feminine nouns eine, for neutral nouns ein, and again in accusative, only the article for masculine nouns will slightly change from ein to einen. We are adding the ending n, ein to einen, but everything else stays the same. So for feminine nouns, eine stays eine, and for neutral nouns, ein stays ein. No additional changes are happening here. So as I have said, accusative is always answering the questions wen oder was, whom or what, and wohin, where to, meaning what is showing up in accusative is either a direct object or a place that we are moving towards. I want to give you some examples to make it a bit more understandable. Let's start off with the first sentence that we can see here. Anna und Tim kaufen den Tisch. Anna and Tim are buying the table. Anna und Tim kaufen den Tisch. Let's analyze the elements of the sentence, starting off with Anna und Tim. Anna and Tim are answering the question who is doing the activity, who is buying the table, and this is making them subjects. So Anna and Tim are the subjects of the sentence because they are initiating the activity. Kaufen, which means buying, is our verb, and the last element will be den Tisch. This is a object in accusative object. Why is it an object? Because this element, the table, is not doing anything. The table is not initiating the activity. The activity is purely just happening to the table. And for that reason, table is not a subject, but an object. It is answering the question whom or what are they buying? They are buying the table. So table here is in accusative. Therefore, we also see changes in its form. We talked about this earlier, that from nominative to accusative, male nouns are experiencing a change, and we can see this here directly. In nominative, we would say der Tisch, because this is a masculine noun, but in accusative, since there is a change happening, we always say den Tisch. Also Anna und Tim kaufen den Tisch. Anna and Tim are buying the table. Let's move on to the second example. Wir fahren am Nachmittag in die Stadt. We are driving to town in the afternoon. Wir fahren am Nachmittag in die Stadt. Again, let's analyze the sentence together, starting off with the first element, which is wir, meaning we. This is a personal pronoun, and this pronoun, we, is answering the question who or what, showing us who is doing the activity, meaning we is the subject of the sentence and therefore it is in nominative. The next element is the verb itself, fahren, which means driving. Wir fahren, we drive. The next word is actually giving us an information about the time when this is happening. Am Nachmittag, in the afternoon. And the last element is giving us information about the place in die Stadt. And this is really important. So when speaking about places in German, it is a bit tricky because places can show up in different cases, in dative and in accusative. How to know the difference? I will simplify it right now, but you can remember it like this. If you are at a place, so you are not moving, you are just being at a place, then the place will be in dative. But if we do have some movement towards a place, then the place has to be in accusative. So just remember it like this. A place in accusative is basically a destination that we are moving towards. And we can see this clearly in this sentence. Wir fahren am Nachmittag in die Stadt. We are driving to town in the afternoon. So where to? In die Stadt, to town, is answering the question wohin, where to. Therefore, the noun die Stadt in this example is in accusative, even though we don't really see a change in the form or in the article of the noun because feminine nouns basically stay the same. In nominative, we say die Stadt, and in accusative as well, it is gonna be die Stadt. And we have one more example to look at. Unser Kollege hat einen guten Lohn. Our colleague has a good salary. Good for him. Unser Kollege hat einen guten Lohn. Okay, let's look at the elements of our sentence, starting off with unser Kollege, our colleague, is, as you have guessed it, answering the question who or what is doing the activity, who has a good salary, which is making this noun the subject of the sentence. Moving on to the verb, here we have the verb haben in third person singular, hat, and then the last element, einen guten Lohn, a good salary. A good salary is again answering the question whom or what. So this is a direct object telling us what does he have. He has a good salary. Be careful. In German, this is a masculine noun and you already know what it means. There will be a change. Here it is used with an indefinite article, so not with der, but with ein Lohn in nominative will turn into einen Lohn in accusative, meaning there is a change happening because this is just how it always is for masculine nouns. Masculine nouns always have a change from nominative to accusative. If you are using an indefinite article, the change will look like this, from ein to einen. Unser Kollege hat einen guten Lohn. And we are almost at the end of today's lesson. Before we wrap this up, I just wanted to give you one more piece of information when it comes to using accusative. We have learned how to use nominative and accusative in terms of the roles that they are playing in a sentence. So is it a subject or an object, and so on. But there is one more scenario in which accusative can show up and it is unrelated to the role that the element is playing in the sentence. It also has nothing to do with the questions that we learned for the cases. This is something completely different. This is just a grammatical rule. Sometimes we have prepositions in German that require using accusative in combination with them. I want to show you some of these prepositions. We don't really have a lot of them. This is not a complete list, but these are the ones that are really important for A1. The first one is für, which in English means for. Für, for. Let me give you an example. Das Paket ist für den Chef. The package is for the boss. Das Paket ist für den Chef. Here, after für, we are actually using a noun in accusative. Why? Because this is just how für is always used. Für in German demands a noun in accusative right after the preposition. This is actually a masculine noun. A change is happening to accusative to den Chef. The change is actually visible because this is a masculine noun. And for masculine nouns, we always see a change of the article. If it's the definite article, then the change is gonna look like this, from der to den. Nominativ der Chef, Akkusativ den Chef. Das Paket ist für den Chef. Moving on to the next one, the next preposition is ohne. Ohne means without. Ohne, without. Let's look at the example. Ohne das Buch kann nicht lernen. Without the book, he cannot learn. Ohne das Buch kann nicht lernen. Again, the preposition ohne in German always requires accusative right after the preposition. So das Buch here is in accusative as well, but we don't really see a change happening because this is a neutral noun. Remember, neutral nouns never have a visible change. Das Buch, Nominativ, das Buch, Akkusativ. Ohne das Buch kann nicht lernen. And the last preposition I want to show you today is durch. Durch means through. Durch, through. For example, sie gehen durch den Wald. They are going or walking through the woods. Sie gehen durch den Wald. Here, durch is used with accusative because this is just the grammatical rule. And here we actually again use a masculine noun. That's why we have a visible change. Woods, you can also say forest, is in German der Wald, and it is changing into den Wald, Nominativ der Wald und Akkusativ den Wald. Sie gehen durch den Wald. And remember, these are some of the most important prepositions that are used with accusative in German. We have some more, you can easily find them online. Just Google prepositions with accusative and you will find a list with all of these prepositions, Akkusativ Prepositionen. But if you are on A1, for now, these 3 are more than enough. So this is it for today's lesson, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really had a lot of fun explaining this grammatical unit. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Also, if you have some video suggestions, some topics that you would like me to talk about, please do not hesitate. I really love grammar. I love explaining it, teaching it. So anything that you want me to explain, just leave it in the comments. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the lesson, please don't forget to support me, subscribe to the channel, leave a nice comment, leave a like, and I hope to see you in the next video. Alles Gute und bis zum nächsten Mal. Auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss.